Hey everyone, we are going to get started on this webinar, Sound Out in the Crowd, Why Online Reviews Are the New Word of Mouth Marketing. We're really excited to be here and to be partnering with TaskEasy and to go over the modern customer journey and how the landscaping industry has changed over the years, and then how your business can be leveraging online reviews to get more new and repeat customers. So we're really excited to hear from Carl from TaskEasy and David from Podium. But before we start, we just have a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so recording will be sent to all registrants in the next day or so you can look for that in your inbox. Also, we'll be taking questions at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to go to your GoToWebinar control panel, and the question section will have a place for you to type in any questions, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Carl and David to begin our webinar.
Thanks, Haley. As Haley mentioned, this is Carl Soa. I'm the CMO and COO at TaskEasy, and happy to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, my name is David Hepworth, joining Carl here. I'm the head of sales here in the home services side of the Podium branch. So it's going to be a fun conversation, Carl, with you. Excited to kind of talk about some of these changes and trends that we have going on.
Excellent.
So as far as just a quick agenda, we are going to kind of start on this, and you know, Carl, I'll let you take the lead with this here, just changes in the landscaping industry, what's been going on lately, kind of maybe some of the things that, you know, the business owners here on the phone can be looking out for. We're going to talk about some of these changes as well with what is this modern customer journey? You know, what are customers going through from searching for businesses, trying to find them, connect with them, as well as really just tips for adapting to these changes and how you guys can stay ahead of the curve. But let's open this up and just talk about the landscaping industry as a whole. I know, Carl, you've got a lot of expertise in this.
Yep. Thanks, David. Yeah, I guess everybody knows that the internet is affecting everything, and the landscaping industry is no exception. One of the things that it's done is really changed how people find landscaping businesses, and actually increased competition in the landscaping space a little bit. One of the other shifts is that consumers are more and more used to just ordering things on their smartphone and ordering things online. So that's definitely impacted the landscaping industry. Let's go next. So one of the big differences is pretty high search volume online. We're seeing between 30 and 70,000 monthly lawn care near me searches, and it's really the primary way that people are finding landscaping professionals these days. Like I said, one of the other shifts is consumers are more and more, you know, millennials like ordering things on their phone, and everybody turns online first, but it used to be sort of 25 to 30% of consumers typically hired a lawn care professional, and that has increased up to 40% of homeowners now have hired someone to mow their lawn for them. And so that's driving up revenue numbers for the industry overall, close to $100 billion a year in landscaping services.
Yeah, we've seen a similar trend like that in a lot of these industries. I mean, not only is it just growing where people are searching for more convenience and more people want to hire out these jobs, but I imagine competition is increasing with this as well in a lot of other categories.
Yeah, it's interesting. We see we have a lot of homeowners on our TaskEasy platform, and we see some that just hire us ongoing permanently for lawn care, but we also have some that dip in and out as maybe they're going on vacation or something like that where they need coverage for a couple of weeks or they get behind and they need it. So people are turning to online for ordering that and spending more with landscaping contractors. And the other piece is as people first get into the housing market, sometimes they don't want to have to buy a lawnmower and the things like that, so they avoid that cost and just order it online. One of the other things, and this is more businesses driving lawn care spending, There's an increased number of companies that are buying single-family rental homes and flipping homes and hiring lawn care professionals for that to increase the curb appeal for renters and quick sales.
Yeah, so it's not just that more people are out buying, but also people are paying more, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What about kind of the competition that you guys are seeing? What have you seen happen lately with more and more people kind of getting involved in this?
Well, there's a lot of competition for placement in search engines because that's the primary search mechanism, and that's one of the ways where reviews can really help with that. We found that when you add reviews listing to your online results, the little stars that show up can dramatically increase the percentage of people who will click on your listing.
Nice.
Yeah. So this slide is a little bit just to talk about more players in the game. There's an interesting new industry called iBuyers that in 2018, almost 10% of homes that were purchased in the U.S. were actually purchased by these companies that were flipping homes, buying them, hiring contractors to get them up to speed and maintaining them until they're sold. And a lot of those companies are on our platform, and that's a way contractors can work with us to access those folks. But property managers, HOAs, commercial facilities, there's about 19 million rental homes in the United States. And almost all of those obviously have to hire lawn care contractors for them. So.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw kind of how you guys were running your engine there, like this seems like an obvious win, just the fact that, I mean, obviously if I'm a single home and I own my own property, I just need to find somebody in my area. But these larger conglomerates that are having homes in lots of different communities, they can't expect maybe sometimes just the one-man shop to buy that. So they look for companies like you to kind of help them allocate those resources out.
Exactly. So, for example, we are doing all of the convenience store gas stations for a major chain in Florida, and we're using smaller landscaping contractors that are in our network for that. And it's a customer that an individual contractor would never have the opportunity to get if they weren't on the TaskEasy platform. So.
Gotcha. And again, kind of on this, we've talked a little bit about this idea of competition increasing. Yeah, give me some of your thoughts on what you're seeing.
Yeah. So one is there's an increased number of folks in the landscaping business. There are about 500,000 landscape businesses across the U.S., and we see a pretty wide range in sizes of those businesses. Sometimes it's two folks in a truck and a local market, and other times it's pretty large players that might have 15, 20, even 25 crews that work for the landscaping business. And but in general, particularly at the entry level, it's a fairly easy market or a fairly easy business to get into in terms of capital investment. So there's always people coming in and trying to earn business. And of course, the other factor is if 40% of homeowners have hired a lawn contractor, that means 60% of them are doing it themselves. Either they're doing it, or their kids are doing it, or the neighbor kids are doing it. And so that's always a competition factor on that front, is how do you win over those customers? But that's definitely a shift that's happening. People are more and more hiring real contractors versus trying to use neighborhood kids, because they realize the quality and safety concerns of using a professional outweigh they just create a big benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I talked to the. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
When we talk to our contractor network, they're definitely concerned about the increased competition, and are frequently asking us how they can get more work or how they can generate more business for their business. So.
Yeah, landscapers aren't the only ones kind of feeling that, but I have talked with a lot of landscapers. They've been in the game for 10 plus years now doing this, and a lot of their top employees, just kind of like you mentioned, that low barrier to entry is causing them to want to branch off and start their own. And so, yeah, you want to make sure that you've got a competitive advantage, that what you're doing isn't so easily, repeatable, or something that somebody can branch off and go and do on your own. And really building that book of business to own that is pretty key.
But here's where today's webinar, I think, can be helpful, because one of the things is a lot of people getting into this space may not have a lot of online experience. And so if a landscaping business can manage their online listings and get good reviews and sign up for apps like TaskEasy, they have a leg up on that competition in terms of getting access to that new digital demand and the ways that people are finding landscaping contractors now.
Gotcha, yeah. And like this last point on the slide here of just the ad spend, I know it says 10,000 is the average spend for a small business on Google Ads. I don't know if that data is specific in the landscaper. I know a lot of my clients are a lot less than that. In fact, I have a ton of them that don't spend any. And it really is one of those areas where you've got to be doing something. You've either got to be spending to attract, you've got to be building processes that are hard to repeat, or kind of what we're going to get into. What other ways can you set yourself ahead of the competition so that you're driving that volume to you, whether it's through ad spend or elsewhere?
Yeah, and that's definitely for most small landscaping businesses are not spending anywhere close to that amount. But there's like TaskEasy is spending over $1 million a year in Google SEM with a team of people that are experts in that to capture some of that demand for our contractors in our network. But there are a lot of things that contractors can do to increase their performance online, and having a web presence and good reviews are part of that.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point too, that even if I am smaller and I'm not spending that, there's a good chance that some of my competition is spending a lot more than me, and they're going to take over that market share with that kind of ad spend if I'm not kind of getting competitive on my own side.
Yeah.
Maybe we can kind of shift gears here, and I want to talk a little bit about this modern customer journey. This is an area where Podium has kind of excelled in our expertise. We've become really proficient at understanding really what does the customer go through when they're looking for a provider, looking for a contractor, looking for a landscaper, and how do we maximize your opportunity as an owner to match that consumer behavior. I think this is an interesting space. In fact, when I talk about this, I usually like to talk about kind of what the process used to be. And really for everybody that's listening here too, I want everybody kind of to take a step out of their business shoes. Obviously, we're business owners and we've got to think about our business that way. But when we're trying to figure out how to attract more, we need to step into those consumer shoes, because we're also consumers. We know how we behave when we shop online, and really what we do is very, very similar to nearly what everybody else does when they're looking for us. But talking a little bit kind of about this past journey. So I'm 30 years old myself. I'm kind of the older millennial generation here. But when I was 15 years old, I actually worked on a lawn crew. My older brother, he owned a business. We were Hepworth Lawn Care. We had about 90 lawns in our book. And
nice.
I would go out every summer. It is not the world that I want to work in anymore. I don't have the green thumb, and those were long summers for me back then. But I remember when I was 15, we were finishing a route. I was driving home, and on the side of the road there was this car. It was a Daihatsu Charade. It's similar to the Geo Metros, the Suzuki Swifts, a very small car. But they had a price tag on it for $250. So I had my brother drive me home. I got my wallet. We drove back over, test drove it, and then I bought it with cash that same day. I was just about to turn 16. Now, obviously that car didn't just cost me $200. There were service, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done on it. And so when I think about this customer journey back then, I mean, this is when the yellow pages were kind of the go-to strategy. And so I needed to get some work done on that car. I walked downstairs, walked into my dad's office, and I asked him, hey, I need to do this for the car. Is there anybody you recommend? he naturally gave me a few names of providers in the area. I then had to go open up the Yellow Pages. He said, go look them up on the Yellow Pages, give them a call, and then call a few others that are on that list that look good. And that was my process back then. I first have to ask somebody that I know if they know somebody and if they'd recommend anybody. We used to always ask for recommendations. We don't as much anymore, and I'll show you kind of why that is. But then I had to just kind of go off of luck. I had to cross my fingers and hope that my dad was actually referring me to a good business. And then when I picked up the phone and called him, there wasn't any measure for me to have to know overall, is this a good or bad business? Is their competition better or worse than they are? And so I just had to get a lot of work done. And I'm sure, Carl, you remember the days back then when Yellow Pages were key and everybody changed their name to AAA Automotive and AAA Landscaping.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was.
But even with the Yellow Pages, people, as you point out, would often ask for references. And that's basically the precursor to online reviews, was you're asking a review for someone that you know, but now that's moved online. So. Yeah.
And that's exactly it. I mean, everything today is online. Technology has redefined how we engage with businesses, and it's not even using our desktop computers. It's these smartphones in our pockets. It's this instant access to information about who we do business with. So now, even if my dad recommends a business, like, I'm still going to look up that business before I ever call him. And with the way that things have changed, whether that business owner likes it or not, before I even talk to them, I am going to get an unbiased, typically unbiased, customer evaluation of that business and their offerings. That's happened through Google reviews most recently. Obviously, engines like Home Advisor, Angie's List, things like, Trustpilot. There's lots of engines out there where they stack rank, don't work with John, Mike's better than Sally, John's the best in the area, and nobody calls Steve. Steve's kind of a little bit of a sleazeball. And we now have this instant access to information in a way. And again, if you're on the call, don't think about your business from a business mindset. Think about it as a consumer, because this is how we behave too. If we're on Amazon shopping for products, we never just buy the first listed product. We're going to browse through the list of options, look for the product that has the best reviews, read a handful of those reviews, and as long as the public support is typically positive, that's going to motivate me to click the buy and get it sent over to me. Same thing with movies, restaurants, all of these different categories. We have kind of subconsciously been conditioned that unless they have good reviews, do not buy it. And so, and Carl, have you experienced that? Have you seen that changing the way that you kind of go about any of this?
Yes, that's right. Customers definitely rely on reviews. And one of the other things is your customers are going to leave reviews for you sometimes whether you want to or not. And so the people who are most motivated to leave a review without you asking them are the ones where maybe something went wrong and they want to go leave a bad review. And so you got to kind of work hard to make sure that you're asking your customers at the right moment when they're happy to leave you a good review, because generally people will leave bad reviews on their own, but you kind of have to ask them for the good review.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. If I have a bad experience, I'm going to go out of my way to shout from the mountaintops to see if I can get that business to reimburse me, fix something and whatnot. But I mean, when was the last time I just went out of my way to leave a business a review that was positive? Like, it rarely ever happens. Like, especially business owners, we want these reviews for ourselves. We want these positive reviews. But when we actually look at our own actions, rarely do we actually go give those reviews out to others. And so I think you're right. Like, when we know a customer's had a good experience, we've got to make sure that we're capturing that review and either asking or setting up a process that makes it easier for that customer to leave that review.
Yeah. And David, like you said, people are going out and looking at websites and stuff before they call. And so having the right presence online, even besides reviews, really makes an impression, helps make the impression on the customer that will make them decide whether to pick someone that has kind of a professional and clean website versus somebody that either doesn't have a website or one that's kind of clunky and dated. And we'll get into that in a little bit, a few slides. We'll talk about what makes a good or bad website.
Yeah, and let's just talk about this kind of online presence like you mentioned, because yeah, like there are lots of areas that you can be online. Obviously, your website's a key portal. Google's a portal. TaskEasy's a portal now. Things like Home Advisor, Angie's List. There's a lot of engines out there these days. And so when I kind of talk about this idea of getting found online, it's really, again, more than anything, think about this new smartphone internet age that we're in. It was 2017, which was the first year in which more than half of all web traffic went mobile. And that's definitely changed the way that Google kind of runs a lot of this. Like I am now shopping from my cell phone, which changes the way that I behave online, changes some of these engines that are really important for me. So we're going to talk about some of these different tips. The very first tip here, and this is pretty ambiguous and vague, but also just pretty obvious. Be where your customers are. When I talk about landscapers and these searches of landscapers near me, people doing this, it's no secret that it's about like 95% of these searches today start on Google. I open up my cell phone, I pull open the internet browser, or I even just do Ask Google or Ask Siri, and I start talking with the phone saying, show me landscapers near me. Now, 95% of these searches are typically going to pull open a Google search term listing. Because we're on our cell phones now too, you can't rely on just these old organic listings. You now need to make sure as a business owner, you have the Google My Business listing turned on. It's kind of highlighted over in these buttons on the right here, but that is that mobile, like bubble-like experience where it highlights your pictures, highlights your reviews, has the buttons where they can click to call, click to go to your website. That is today one of the most important listings that you can have for your business online. Outside of that, though, as well, like if you're trying to get more social media and all those engines, those are really key as well. But yeah, Carl.
Yeah, and the good news is some of these things don't actually cost money. You can actually go claim your business listing and make sure that the right information, you can load your hours and things like that. And it doesn't cost money, but it's just a little bit of time that can dramatically increase your visibility online. Yeah,
like that Google My Business listing, I still hear that there are some companies out there that will charge businesses to help set it up, but that one, yeah, it's a 5-minute fill out a form online. Google's going to send you a postcard in the next 3 to 4 days, and as soon as you get that postcard, you type in the code and you're live. It doesn't cost you any money. You should do it today if you don't already have it.
Yep. And the order I'd probably do these on this page is I do number 1 first, and then number 3, and then number 2, because that's in terms of the priority order what I'd go for.
Yeah, like social media, obviously, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation for debates, but personally, I don't like social media anymore, and I'll just say that. So I want to talk a little bit real quickly about these then online reviews, because I feel like this is something, and I'm sure, Carl, you've heard it talked about night and day. It's becoming kind of the generalized talk track for when people are talking about their online presence. Reviews is like the second sentence or second word that comes up with this as well. Now, there are a lot of engines for where reviews matter, and I want to talk specifically about Google reviews and why these ones have been so impactful and so different than a lot of other engines. Because this is something that really has changed in the last 5 years. So again, like if I was on Google 7, 8, 9 years ago, and I typed in landscapers near me, it wasn't this mobile internet, it was the old organic search results. And what happened back then is Google had the exact same goal back then that they do today. In fact, it was their version 1 goal. They want to help me as a consumer find what I'm searching for. That's the whole goal. And the truth is, Google cares about us as consumers by and far first priority. Whether or not they have our attention as business owners, I don't know if they really mind, because they do have our attention as consumers. They're always going to keep that priority, that if I'm searching for something, they want to help me find it. Now, obviously, if I'm a consumer looking for a landscaper, it's inherent that I want a good landscaper. So we talk about how Google then filtered for good, because that was always a goal as well. They want to recommend good businesses so that people stay on Google. So 7 years ago, and you're probably an expert in this, Carl, but they created SEO, search engine optimization, this big complicated algorithm to help people get up on top of the search ranks. I guess, Carl, tell me a little bit about it. Did you spend a lot of time in that in your past?
Yeah, we still spend a lot of time on SEO, and there's a whole, it's kind of black magic, and they never tell you what works and what doesn't, but yeah, it's a lot of effort to make sure that you're showing up correctly in the search engine rankings.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's black magic. It's meant to be complicated. Google doesn't want to let anybody know exactly how it works, because if you do, then you can manipulate the algorithm into your favor. But
yeah, they want to avoid people gaming the system.
Yep, 100%. And so what happened in the past, though, so 6 years ago, I do this search, landscapers near me. It wasn't the good business owners that were showing up at the top of the search results. And you probably remember this. But the people that were always and consistently at the top of SEO search, it was Home Advisor, Angie's List, Yelp, and a lot of these third-party engines that stack-ranked competition, because they were the ones that had the money. They could dump a lot of money into figuring out SEO, testing things back and forth, and saying, what is the formula to get us closer to the top? Google didn't want that traffic leaving Google and going to those third-engine sites. So they implemented Google reviews. This was essentially a goal to provide the consumers what the consumers already wanted, some sort of validation and accreditation of businesses right there in the search results that tells me whether they're good or not. So they implemented Google reviews. But this had much larger of an impact than just stars and feeling good about your business. Obviously, consumers care about Google reviews, but the implications and the results that Google got out of this were huge. All of a sudden, Google owned a ton of content that directly told them which businesses were good, which ones were bad, what services they offered, where their customers are based off of the reviews from those customers. So it all of a sudden gave Google a very clear picture of me as a business owner, what I do. And so now when you actually look at this SEO algorithm, Google reviews have become one of the most important, if not today, the leading factor for where you show up in search results and how Google prioritizes your business. Because again, their goal is the same. They want to recommend good businesses. So if I can get hundreds of my customers to say good things about me online, Google now has a ton of confidence to recommend my name. And that's what we've seen. In fact, we did a steady pulse and survey of our customer base, and our average customer has seen over a 100% increase in phone calls from that Google listing, because all of a sudden they get more reviews and they get more visibility, more search results, and more people clicking and engaging with it. And that's one of the big opportunities here.
Yeah, to David's point earlier, if you put on your consumer hat, the absence of reviews is just as bad as bad reviews. Meaning if you don't have reviews on your profile, first of all, you aren't, if you think about a listing, your eye naturally gravitates to the stars and the sort of graphical impact of the reviews against your listing. And people that don't have any reviews are kind of dismissed. We actually had a glitch a couple years ago where our reviews came off our organic search results for a month, and it was like a 40% hit in the click-through rate from people seeing the listings, because the review stars just draw people's eyes to your listing in the first place. Plus, then if people do notice it and they're like, well, this company has reviews and this one doesn't have any reviews, they naturally gravitate to the company that has reviews.
Yeah, spot on. Like, if you don't have reviews, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to have reviews these days. And same thing, I mean, even if you only have 5 reviews, me as a consumer, well, hey, you probably have 5 employees at least. Like, I don't know if I can trust that yet. Like, when I shop on Amazon, I try to not buy products unless they have hundreds, if not thousands of reviews, just because I want to know, like I want to confidently know that there's enough feedback, enough content in here that they couldn't have rigged the system as a business owner. But let's kind of shift gears here, because again, reviews, you need them as a business owner. The more you get, the more eyeballs you're going to get. But this next whole process is, if you have those eyeballs now, how do you actually capture their attention? How do you get those eyeballs from, you know, window shoppers, browsers to actually paying customers? Because you'll see kind of the stat here, 28% of near me searches result in a purchase. In fact, I saw another stat, I don't know if we'll have it in this deck or not, it might be later on, but it's about 80% of those near me searches. When I'm looking for a business, I am going to attempt to contact that business within about 18 hours. We aren't searching as consumers just to browse. Like if I'm looking for a landscaper, I've probably decided already that I want one. And then as long as I see somebody in the area that's got good reviews, I'm going to call them and buy from them.
That's right. That's one of the things the landscaping industry has going for it. Generally, when people are searching for terms like landscaping contractor or landscaping service or lawn cutting service, it's because they are actively looking to find a provider for themselves. It's not because they're just researching the industry as a whole or researching what the options are, because people know what the options are. It's like, you know, people know what landscaping contractors are. And so when they're searching for it, they're searching for someone because they want to purchase.
So kind of with that then, like this third tip is essentially just make it easier for customers to reach you. This is, again, a very obvious tip. The more convenient you as a business are to get a hold of, to purchase from, the more people will do that. And what I necessarily mean by this make easy, and now the actual advice for those listening, obviously you need to be attentive, you need to be answering the phone, you got to be able to, you know, field those calls, get a hold of those that are requesting services. But it's also 2019, and if you're just a company that I can call, you're missing a large market out there. It's 2019, we all know text messaging is very, very important. So I say, for instance, like if you're a business owner, open up all these doors. That way, look, those that would rather call you, they're going to pick up the phone and call you. You're going to get their business. But if there's customers that would rather text you, open up that channel so that they can text you so that you can get their business. Or, you know, look, there is still market share on Facebook and Instagram. People are still using those channels, especially today, the older generations. It's not the younger people on those, it's actually the older generations. And they might find that as an easier way to get a hold of you and reach out and say hello. So you at least need to open up these doors. If you're really small, you know, don't worry about Facebook and Instagram today. Turn on text messaging, make sure your website's there, it's clickable. Google Business Chat is a very easy one as well. If you have that Google My Business listings, you can go into the settings and you can turn on texting from that Google listing. That way you have like the call button, but also a message button. Open up these doors, let the customers kind of meet you at whatever terms they have. Now, again, if you're looking at your own business, don't pull open your Google listing from a desktop computer and see how you look. Don't pull open your website from a desktop computer and see how it looks. Pull out your smartphone, do a quick Google search of your business, look at how your Google ranking looks. Because typically you're going to see 3 or 4 buttons right there under your name. Call, directions, save, and website. Now, that's where you could add that texting button. But even if you don't add that, the website button today is the most used button. People are going to do a Google search. They're going to look for a good business. All of a sudden they find your business because you've got better reviews than your competition. 6 out of 10, if not 7 out of 10 customers, they're going to then go over to your website. And this is an area where you really, really want to maximize your conversion metrics and really pull in a lot of volume from it.
That's right. As he mentioned, many times people do go directly to the website first, but I'd echo his comment about texting. And in fact, on this example, I would probably even have the words call or text next to the phone number on this website, so that it's clear that people have both options. Seems to me, I don't know about other people, but I would much prefer texting somebody than actually talking to them on the phone. I hate talking on the phone now. But a text, in fact, I sometimes will email people and say, text me before you call, because otherwise I won't answer your phone call, because if I don't recognize the number, I'm not going to take it. But the texting works. So let me run through a couple of things on that website that are important for you to consider. And again, I'd echo what David said. Look at your website first on your phone. We have a sort of a desktop view here because it's easier to see everything on one screen to talk through it. But most people are going to be looking at you on your website on their phone. So number one, that easy contact information, call or text with a phone number so that customers can quickly get to you. It's helpful to have a strong call to action, whether it's get a quote, get my price, find out about services, something like that, with a really clear way for them to reach out to you. Make the ask on the website. Don't just say, I do lawns. Ask them to engage with you with something like this quick and easy quote box. Is a big factor in making someone actually reach out and engage with you. Having general information about the services that you offer right there on the homepage. One of the, and in this case, it's even, we call it above the fold, meaning if they have their web page open, the content that you want to see needs to be near the top. Sometimes I see people put a nice, big, pretty picture at the top, and it pushes everything content-wise below the fold. And most people don't scroll below the fold. So if you don't have your content up near the top of the page, many people aren't going to see it. And finally, the last note here is, if you're investing all this time in getting the right reviews, many reviews platforms will have a widget like this Trustpilot thing where you can have that right on your website, either in the header or in the content area of your website. Is important for getting credibility when people do click through.
Yeah, and with that as well, there's lots of ways that you can do it, whether you go with a third-party engine for it. I've seen some people even, have their own page where I can write a recommendation, and so they have their own content. Personally, my opinion in this space is Google also allows you to essentially, you could put and highlight Google reviews on your website as well. Those are the ones that I would do, just because, again, those have a lot more credibility because everybody knows what Google is, and we all know what Google reviews are, and that gives you a lot of credibility for those as well. And yeah, I think you're spot on. If I'm on my cell phone, I also have less attention span. So you really want to maximize and make sure that as soon as I land on your website, I'm going to see relevant information for what I'm likely searching for. It's obvious, when we look at Google and the way that they've changed the internet search browser for mobile. Google obviously kind of has they've got a lot of information. They know how we behave as consumers. And I think the same thing that you see them doing is smart to do on your own side. I think this website's a great example of it, to where if I'm using the internet on my cell phone, I'm going to read less words. I want buttons. I want images, things like that, which are just easier for me to consume and digest from that mobile internet experience. So same thing with your websites. Make it look pretty. If you've just got lengthy paragraphs after paragraphs of text, maybe it's finally time to refresh some of that content. And same thing, some of those buttons. We don't have a picture of it here too, but those chat bubbles that you can throw on your website are a great way to increase and attract that mobile audience, because they're already looking for buttons to click, and you put a little button in the corner of your website, you'll often get 2 to 3 times the amount of clicks and submissions compared to a traditional form field on your website.
The other thing to mention is speed of response when people are reaching out is actually really important. And it's everything from Google notices when someone clicks on a link and they don't come back they're occupied for a while, they assume that that means they've transferred you to the content that you wanted. So if somebody transfers to your website, reaches out, doesn't get a response, and then they bounce back to Google and try somebody else, that actually hurts your response in the rankings. But also, if you think about it from a customer perspective, when we've studied how people buy online, buy landscaping services in particular online, we see that people will often go through the listings and they'll reach out to one person and they don't get a response. So they reach out to the next person and they don't get a response, and they reach out to the third person and they don't get a response. And then basically the first person that actually responds back to them and coordinates and does something, then they'll typically go with that. And by the time the second or third person responds back to them, they're like, they won't even take your call or response, because they're like, number one, it's a call I don't recognize. So, but they will have already secured somebody and then they're done. So speed of response is key.
No, I think you're spot on there. I mean, again, like, just having the best reviews doesn't mean you get the job. Like, there are still people out there who, in fact, I had this experience just about 2 weeks ago. My parents were driving by my area. They were on the freeway. Something fell off this tractor trailer and it busted a hole in their radiator. So they were on the side of the freeway stuck. So they called me. I came out. I needed to get a tow truck for them. So I hurried and pulled out my smartphone. I searched tow trucks near me. Now, there were 4 or 5 that had good reviews. I called 5 of them. Like, I didn't call anybody that had bad reviews, but the first guy I called, he had good reviews. He gave me a quote. I called another guy that had good reviews, got a quote from him. So people are still doing that experience. And if you're not responding quickly, you definitely are still losing that traffic. They're going to call the next looking person, the next best looking person. And kind of now in this frame of like this purchase, sell them on the experience. Like, this whole idea is just around the opportunity of connecting this offline world with this online world. We've got the internet at our fingertips. We've got instant access to learn about you as a business owner. And I also expect instant responses. Now, if you're on your website and you're looking at a chat type system, you might not have the bandwidth to manage a live chat experience where somebody has to be available 24/7 to respond to those that are on your website. If you can't have that bandwidth, look at some of the alternatives. There are some form capture chats. There's also textable chat systems now too, where the conversation starts on the line online on the website, but then it captures the customer's cell phone and takes it offline so that you don't have to have them wait. You can text them back at a much more leisurely experience, a much more convenient experience for you both. Same thing, I think, Carl, kind of what you said there too, like, you'll email people and tell them to text you before they call you. That's really important today too, because when we think about communicating with our customer base today, it is different than communicating with our customers prior. Today, if I send out emails, well, good luck. Your customers, you're going to have about 2 out of 10 of those get opened and read. If you pick up the phone and call, they assume you're a spam robocaller. I mean, I still get 3 or 4 of those every single week, and it's been years now that I've done this. My voicemail has become my gatekeeper. So we want to make sure that, you've got to open up some of these channels. Texting is a very easy door to get into some of this. What have you kind of thought about that, or what have your experiences been with texting as businesses, Carl?
Yeah, one of the other nice things about this is people, and you talk about changes in how we communicate with customers. The text format, people don't want big, long, flowery responses. In fact, they'll shortcut words, and so when you are responding, you don't need to do a lot of salesy stuff. It's just like, I can help you, I can be there, yes, I can do this. It's short, quick, pithy responses that are what people want. Because if you think about it, you put yourself in the customer's shoes, that's what you would want too. You don't want to be sold. You want to know that somebody can take care of what you need done. Great, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah. If somebody texts in asking if you service their county, don't respond and say, well, dear Sally, this is what we do, sincerely, John. Just text them back like a normal human. It's so much easier for both of us. And whether you're like a small business and you're trying to manage this, like this becomes another issue, like the management of this new conversation base. Just opening up texting sounds like a great idea, but actually in practice can be difficult for some to figure out. And so this is where we kind of recommend like use an interaction management platform. That's what we do, Podium. That's what our software is we are an engine to help you as a business owner take advantage of these doors in an easy fashion so that you're not stretching yourself super thin. And kind of just to your point, yeah, Carl, like when you're actually implementing this, when you're actually using this process well, it becomes really, really easy. Lots of ways that you can use it. Appointment reminders, rescheduling, fielding inbound lead volumes. This one's a quick example of like getting feedback. Like maybe after you do the weekly mo, just text the customer and say, hey, thanks so much. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us? They'll give you a score. Well, great. What could have we done to make it a 10? What could have we done better? Maybe if they give you a low score, you can quickly mitigate and solve those problems before it actually becomes a big issue. Because really, you just want open communication with your customer base. As long as your customers feel like you're listening to their feedback, that customer instantly becomes a much longer term customer and is much more likely to recommend you as a business. As far as other ways, whoops, go ahead, Carl.
I was just going to say that's right, and like here's an example on the screen that's not in the landscaping space, but we see this all the time at TaskEasy, where sometimes somebody will have a less than perfect experience and leave a review, and we reach out to them, and we end up making them more loyal by responding to the review than even before, if they haven't had the reason to leave the not perfect review in the first place.
Yeah, I had a client who they sent out one of these questions. They got, I think it was like a 4 back, a 3 or a 4, and theirs was, you know, how likely to recommend us are you? And they got a 3 or a 4 back, and it was a very simple issue of just like a bag had been left at the house, and the customer actually didn't care that much, but for some reason they chose to give them that score. So they texted back and they said, so sorry to hear that. We're going to send somebody out. We'll pick that up. Let us know if there's more that we can do for you on this. But then the customer followed up and said, hey, by the way, do you pay for referrals? And so it instantly turned this customer who likely wouldn't have engaged, wouldn't have reached out to voice an issue, get a resolution that made that customer stickier and stronger, and then also led to, yeah, new sales, new referrals, new business for them.
Yeah. And if you are responding to a negative review and you end up being able to fix it for the customer and making them happy again, don't hesitate to make the ask of, hey, since we've solved this, can you adjust your review for me? Because many times they are willing to do that if you've solved the problem for them.
Yeah, and you know, be salesmen still. Figure out a subtle way to ask. You don't necessarily need to be direct, but say, hey, what could we do to, you know, make this a 5-star experience? Then you do that thing, and yeah, they naturally end up updating those things for you, updating those reviews, updating those scores and sentiment. So kind of talking about this now idea of promoting. We've talked a lot about reviews, the importance of. Obviously, you're going to win and get more of this volume if you make it easy for customers to get reviews. So how do you essentially create these advocates? How do you get these customers to then go leave a review? We know that the consumers care. We know that Google cares. So we need to focus on this. So the 7th point is make this a priority. Turn your customers into promoters. When you've had a good experience with them, follow up with them and ask them for a review. So you can, again, see a very simple example of how to go about this on the right. Hey, Bryce, you know, thanks for choosing us. Could you take 30 seconds and leave us a review using the link below? Now, again, this can be a benefited way where if you work with a system like Podium or an interaction management platform, they can help you manage these as well as get powered links to make the process easier for the customer. But if I was, you know, even just a one-man shop and I'm trying to get more visibility, I would just go copy and paste the URL to my Google listing and text that out to my customers and say, hey, could you go leave me a review? It's not going to be seamless and you're not going to have high conversion metrics, but you're going to have much, much more than if you just hope that they go do it and figure it out on their own. And the truth is, that
kind of echoes what we talked about before, and that people will leave bad reviews on their own, but they have to be asked to leave good reviews. And this is where service companies like landscaping contractors have an advantage, because you'll know that there are particularly opportune times to ask your customers for a review. Let's say someone has hired you for a fall cleanup and it's a bigger project and they come home and their yard is looking great. That's a really great time to say, hey, are you happy with our results? You are great. Can you leave us a review here? So that sometimes the timing of the ask, you can be smart about it based on your experience with the customer. And people actually like being asked for a review like that when it's something that they're really happy with. So, and you probably know when you've done something that's made your customer particularly happy. So that's a timing advantage. Take advantage of that and make the ask.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. Like, there's no magic sauce to this. Like, a lot of people, and again, I kind of blame the poor email system. I think it's bred way too many poor habits into how we can kind of communicate with our customers. Like, we've been conditioned as business owners to where we know that when we send out 1,000 emails, nobody does anything with it. Like, very few people click, respond, fill out the survey, leave a review, and engage in that manner. And so we've lost this touch and this connection with our customers, where text messaging is really allowing us to kind of open up that door again. Like, you can text the customer about whatever it is, and they can text you about whatever it is, and they actually respond through this medium. To where now, yeah, if I provide a good service, or if a customer asks me something, like, whenever I'm in engagement with that customer and I know I've done something that they appreciate, ask for a review. Hey, thanks so much for, I know you guys need us to cancel on the mow this week. You guys have stuff going on, so yeah, we'll push this off to next week. By the way, we're trying to really grow our business online. Would you mind leaving us a review? Like, nearly everybody says, yeah, of course we will. And then as long as you send them something, send them a link, send them something that makes it easier, they're going to go out of their way to leave that review for you. Kind of that's the last main tip that we wanted to talk through. This has been a fun session. I know we're wrapping up on time here. I think there may be some questions that should be coming in as well. If anybody's on the phone and they have questions, you're welcome to kind of chime in and add those questions into that queue there. But Haley, maybe let me hand this off to you. In fact, actually, Carl, anything from your end you want to kind of focus on that we actually maybe missed? Any thoughts that you feel like we should have addressed?
Well, I think we covered a lot of it. I just wanted to summarize at the end is make sure that you have a good website and that it's mobile ready. Make sure that you're open to sort of texting communication and responding quickly. Make sure that you have good reviews and that you're asking your customers for reviews. And then finally, if you're interested in business from large companies that work through the TaskEasy platform that can give you paying jobs versus marketing leads, then sign up for the TaskEasy. Sign up at taskeasy.com as well.
Yeah, and same thing from our side. If there's anybody interested in our services, getting more in depth on any of this, we're happy to kind of communicate. We also have open here kind of just some contact info for any questions specific towards this webinar. But yeah, it looks like maybe some questions in. Haley, let me hand this back over to you, and you can field some of this for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David and Carl. That was really great information, and we hope that our listeners could go home and take some of this information with them and implement it into your business to hopefully help with some of these processes and make the journey more convenient for you and for your customers. Just a reminder before we jump into Q&A to submit your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If we don't get to your question or you think of it after the webinar, again, feel free to reach out to either us or TaskEasy, and we'll make sure to get your questions answered. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so you should get a recording in the next day or so in your inbox. So we'll jump right into questions. It looks like we had some come in. This first one is, how important is it to respond to reviews?
Yeah, maybe let me jump in on this one. I think there's a couple reasons, and again, a couple ways that when you're looking at this idea that it is important. So first off, if I'm a consumer searching and I see somebody's had a bad experience and I see a bad review, if I see that overall this company has a 4.8 star rating, has lots of reviews, and nearly most all of their customers have a good experience, but I still am curious, so I look at their bad reviews. And all of a sudden I see the business owner responded to that review in a very professional way. That is actually huge for me as a consumer, because now I know most likely I'm going to have a good experience. But even in that off chance that I have a bad experience, this business is going to handle it and take care of it for me. So the consumer side, it's very important to see that engagement, more important on those negative reviews. From though the other opportunity of this, Google cares as well. Now, I haven't seen any obvious data that puts the nail in the coffin that says, yes, it matters, because again, like we talked at the starting, the SEO algorithm is meant to be mysterious and confusing and nobody knows exactly how it works. But we did see one study back from 2017 where they saw a high correlation in businesses that are responding to reviews showing up higher in search results. And now my assumption of this is because A, it's a strong indicator to Google that you're aware of your business listing, you're actively monitoring it, so most likely the information is up to date, and because Google knows consumers care about these responses, you responding is good for their consumer engine. So you don't have to respond to every review, but yeah, I would spend, once a week if you've got volume that coming in that often, a few times a month if you have less volume coming in, but I would get on and I would respond definitely to all the negative reviews, and then also occasionally to the positive reviews if there's anything that you could add to that. Any thoughts on that, Carl?
Yeah, no, I would echo the same thing. And the other part of it is if you make it a point to make sure you're responding to the reviews, that also means that you have something in your business process to make sure you're looking at them in the first place. Because I know a lot of us get really busy in our day-to-day work stuff, and it's easy to let something like that slide and then realize, oh, I haven't gone and looked at my reviews for a month because I'm not actively responding to them. And then you see something that happened 30 days ago that you could have solved. We actually get made aware of problems in the process from bad reviews. And so if you're not pretty proactively watching for that and responding, you're losing out on opportunities to fix things with customers and even fix things in your general process based on that feedback from your customers. So I'd echo that too. It's really important to respond to your bad reviews, and also responding to good reviews is helpful, but for sure the bad ones.
And another question came in that's kind of going along with that. Both of you talked about the importance of responding to your reviews, and especially the negative reviews. But what are your tips on the wording or what actually you can say to help fix and respond to these negative reviews?
Well, one thing David hinted at before, which is always keep it professional. I think a lot of times, people online get very, I'll say not nice because they're not face-to-face with someone. And so some of those reviews you might get from customers will make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Don't try and fight with people in a reviews platform. Be super professional and sort of try and solve the problem. That said, sometimes there's people that you're never going to solve the problem for, so know to pick your battles. But always keep it professional, even with people like that.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, you're responding, yes, to the person that left the review, but you're responding also to the general public. And you want to win that bigger battle much more than the battle with maybe somebody that had a bad experience, even though you do want to resolve that.
Right. Plus, the other factor is don't freak out if you get a bad review. Frankly, David talked about going to Amazon and seeing good reviews. If you see a product that's 100% 5-star reviews, your response as a consumer is like, that's not right. Those have to be fake. Because everybody knows there's always 1 out of 10 customers that's just crazy, and you're going to have some bad reviews. So in my opinion, having some real bad reviews mixed in with the good ones kind of makes your reviews more credible, especially if, when people are looking at them, they can see that you've responded and you have a polite response and that you're paying attention to your business.
Yeah, on the same vein, I also get the question often of just generalized, how can I get rid of these bad reviews? How can I fix them? How can I get away with them? And there are a couple areas here, because it is in Google's terms of service that I am supposed to be leaving reviews for people that I do business with. I shouldn't be leaving reviews for people that I was employed with. That's not what that Google review engine is. So there are oftentimes cases where, you know, I see competitors go and leave bad reviews for each other. That's against the terms. You can try to flag those reviews. You can try to get Google to remove them. That being said, Google's got a lot of stuff going on. I don't think they're going to, you know, high prioritize it and make sure that they're always getting every review off that shouldn't be there. So the best way to do it is just to bury them with good reviews. Reviews should not be a defensive game that we're playing. We should not be waiting for bad reviews and getting rid of them. We shouldn't be waiting for good reviews. We should proactively be taking the offense with this review play. It is one of the most important things you can do for visibility for your business. So make sure that you've got a process and a plan to go target those happy customers of yours and get them to leave you reviews online. And that way, you're not even going to be concerned or worried about those bad reviews when they do come in, because for every one bad review, you've got 60 other 5-star reviews, and it just gives you credibility and clout with that general look.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Looks like that's all of the time that we have. Again, just a reminder that this webinar was recorded and you'll get a copy of it in your inbox. Thank you again to our speakers, Carl and David. We're really happy with this presentation, and thank you everyone for your questions. We hope you have a good day, and thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Guys.